Fender Blues Deluxe. Got all the wires disconnected except these going to the standby. Got the filter cap snipped out. Got all the hardware, nuts loosened up on the top panel. I remove this one screw here, and I'm ready to pull the board out and see what we see. Let's see if the reverb will allow just enough slack to do this. All right, let me show you what I'm seeing. This is the heat damage caused by the low voltage supply in a Hot Rod Deluxe and a Blues Deluxe. And, it's really frustrating that they keep saying, hey, we got the Hot Rod 3, now we got the Hot Rod 4, and it's just cosmetic stuff on the outside. The core circuit with the core problems has not changed in, 30 years now? You'd think that they would say, oh, that's a problem. Is there a better way to get a plus minus 15 volt supply these days than what we slapdashed together in 1993 based on the last of the Evil Twin circuit, which also does the same thing? The answer is yes. There are a lot of chips that you can just give them a regulated 5 volt supply and you get really good plus minus 15. This is only driving 2 or 3 op amps. It doesn't need to be high current. They're doing a brute force voltage drop the worst way possible. It's really ugly. This is fixable, but it shouldn't have to be fixed, and it's on every freaking one that comes in because it's a problem with every freaking one that's ever been made, and people keep buying these, and all the people who do the reviews and the magazines and blah 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 always give it a top editor's pick. Get you a Hot Rod, it's got the great clean sound, everyone uses it, or the Blues. It's very frustrating. I'm turning into Ralph Nader. The gas tank is in the bumper. Let me show you some other stuff wrong with it. I don't know how well you can see this because of how the camera does shiny things, but many of these little joints on these jacks for the effects loop and foot switch have little breaks in their solder. Those all need to be reflowed. Same for the input jack here. This one and this one especially, and that one. But in this case, I'm going to replace these jacks with switchcrafts on metal frames, 12As. On the later Hot Rod and Blues amps, where the input jacks and foot switch jacks are larger than the jacks for the effects loop, they have a much better quality jack. It would still be nicer to go to a 12A on those, but the distance from the center point to the board is much smaller on those amps, and it's much harder to put in a 12A. On these early ones, where all 5 jacks are the exact same size, you can do a 12A on the inputs without any problem. There's plenty of room. Let me go through here and give a visual inspection. I'm sure there's some other bad solder joints in here. The pots are usually prone to it, and I've got to get all the stuff out from the heat damaged area, and hopefully I can get all this stuff out of the heat damage area without the traces and pads just lifting off the board, because they are baked. Let's see how we do. First, I want to snip them off so that there should be no strain on the other side. I'm not going to bend the leads up or anything. I don't want any mechanical stress because the traces just can't handle that. Why isn't it coming up? Does it have hot glue or something? There it goes. All right. I think I got a little dab of silicone underneath there. Let me gently pry these up. What a beautiful, beautiful piece of engineering this is. Don't you agree? All right, let's see what's on the other side of the board waiting for us. Well, dang it, just what I was trying to avoid, because that silicone was stuck to the leads. It pulled on it, and these pads have lifted off, which means that they were pretty damn weak to begin with. There's not a lot to do to prevent that. This may be a situation where I put a terminal strip on the chassis that holds new components, and run wires to the board so there's less mechanical weight and stress. I think that might be the best solution, but that does require me to remove the chassis to do that. So more labor, more cost for the owner because someone at Fender saved the wrong couple of bucks in 1993. Yeah, these are all just too far gone. There's just no structural strength left. I'm also concerned about these caps, these here and these here that have had some heat on them. I think I've got a whole bunch of extra caps for these, specifically for these. I think I'm going to have to remount the 5-watt components on a terminal strip mounted to the chassis. I'll show that in a bit, but I also want to show how this would have gone had there not been the heat damage. So I'm going to remove this lead from this capacitor, this filter cap. And it's the exact same procedure that I tried to do here. It's just, you can see the difference. Once that heat ruins the board, you know, it's like being a heart surgeon. There's only so much you can do if they insist on eating KFC every day. All right, so old component lead out. Old solder off. That's good. That's ready to take the lead for the new component. And that's how this entire thing would have gone if I was just trying to replace these. But I'm having to replace them because of that awful heat. And that's where we get into this kind of nastiness. So, let me pull the chassis and we'll get to the next bit of fun stuff. Well, actually, I've got a bunch of stuff to do before I pull the chassis. But for instance, these are the stock solder joints on these output tube pins. You can see a little break in that one there. So those get reflowed. These screen grid resistors here will get removed because they often fail. New ones will be installed. I need to look at which phase inverter this particular amp has. The ones in the Hot Rod Deluxe, the 82K often fails, but I think this is the one that is like a 91K and a 10K and 110K or something like that, and they're a little less prone to it. But I'll be cleaning it all up, and just for the fun of it, I'll be reflowing those solder joints on those pins as well, because they are solder starved. Cleanliness is next to toneliness. Doesn't look very impressive, but my God, this is going to be a huge improvement with the 5-watt components mounted on these terminal strips. They can get as hot as they want. They won't burn anything else, and they won't actually get that hot because they've got good heat dissipation now. And so this damage won't happen again. Now, some of these traces I've got to rerun because the trace that's on the board is unreliable. So there'll be some new junction wires on this board, and there will be 3 wires going from the board, 4 wires, 5 wires, sir. 5 is right out. So to these resistors, from these resistors, and ground. And it'll all bundle up neatly, and the whole thing, the ugly but beautiful circuit down there will be hidden by the board, and it'll have that lovely battle scar for the rest of its life. But that's okay. It will no longer be in the service. These caps were bad. They're changed out. These are good. These are all new. This resistor here, R59, needs to get changed out on these as well. There was a little bit of toasting on the board, but there was no damage. So we're in a good place. We start to put all this back together, then maybe we'll get a chance to hear it someday. All right, as unlovely as this is actually very secure, won't cause any more issues. Once it's all buttoned up, it'll be discreetly hidden. I think this video is long enough. I'm going to stop this here, and then in the next video, I will install the 2 new switchcraft jacks, put it all back together. We'll see how it sounds, see if the amp has any other issues. But the only better way to do this better would involve a time machine to go back and say, don't do that. But seriously, they've had a couple of decades now of don't do that. You'd think maybe the Hot Rod and Blues version 5 will have a more sane approach to getting a very, very simple plus minus 32 volt supply for the 3 op amps.